Hi guys, how are you? Welcome back to my garden and welcome back to part 2 of preparing the garden for winter. So I hope you enjoyed yesterday's video. I can tell you I was really happy that I tackled that area in the back of a garden and really prepared it for winter, because just when I walked from the driveway to the back of a garden, I looked to my right immediately and I looked and I was like, yeah, that was good. That's so satisfying that the perennial weeds are all gone, that there's a fresh layer of mulch. It looks nice, crisp, clean, tidy, perfect. Super happy about it. But what I'm going to do today is I'm going to focus on my tender plants. So I'll be lifting my dahlias and gladiola that I grow back in here. So you get to see them already there a little bit. So I have 7 dahlias, I think, and 10 gladiola, if I'm not wrong. So I ordered the dahlias online, and the gladiola, they came as a gift from 2 different suppliers. So I got a pair of 5, I think, which makes 10 in total. And they are different colors, which I don't mind. Like, they were nice for a vase, beautiful cut flowers. I'm really going to lift those. The gladiolas are bulbs, while the dahlias are tubers. But what I want to do now is basically, I'm just going to get in front of the camera, just flip the phone, get in front of the camera, if that makes any sense, and just talk you through the process on how to lift those tubers and bulbs. So all the garden tools that I need for today's project are actually a nice good pair of secateurs and my garden fork, and that's all I need pretty much. So what I do first is I'm just going to talk you through a little bit, and then I just do it and just speed things up a little bit. But in order to lift things, I just want to make sure that it's like easy and accessible. So I just come in with my secateurs first and just snip basically off at the base. So I just come here at the base, leave maybe like 2-3 centimeters still here, so I still get to see actually where the bulb is. And then I just come in with my garden fork, but they are planted quite narrow. So I'm just going to snip off more of them just to be sure that don't do any harm or damage. And the reason why you use your garden fork is because, I mean, you can still kind of like get in there and damage the bulb, obviously, but with a spade you could kind of like chop it in half. And with a garden fork, I still feel you're a little more on the secure side, and this is why I do it. And I also just don't, like here is the stem, so I don't just go right next to it. I really go in there with a good distance, so pretty much like 10-15 centimeters. And then just get in there, just gently try and lift it, and here it is. Looking all good. Yeah, looking really good. Perfect, healthy bulb. And what I do then is come in again with my secateurs basically, and just snip off in an angle always. Pretty much all that's still there. And then I'm left with a little bulb. I just come closer, looking like this. So this is all I do with the gladioli basically. So what I'm going to do now is get in here, lift all of those gladiola. I think this is going to take probably, I don't know, 5 minutes out of me. And what I'm going to do next is the dahlias, I built like this little like framework around them. So kind of like a staking system. So just like some bamboo canes, and I had some twine in there. So I'll just get this out first, and then I'll explain you how I'm going to lift the dahlias, which is pretty much, to be fair, the exact same thing on how to lift the gladiola, but I'm still going to talk you through how to do it. So as you can tell, exactly the same method as on how I've done it with the gladiola. I just came in with my secateurs and just cut them back, still left like a little bit of a stem, so I just know where to dig basically now. And so also I just have a little bit of like a handle almost where I could just like shovel them around, just like push them up easier, pull them out easier. So what I do now, exactly the same, is like here I've got my stem, so I just go couple of centimeters away from it. And with the dahlias, you really want to go a little further away because some varieties, they've really built a lot of new tubers over a good season. This summer here was not basking hot. It was a nice summer, lovely summer, kind of moderate temperature, so I don't expect miracles here. But I think I'm still going to be able to dig some really nice tubers. And when you buy them, I mean, they come almost like individuals, like singles. So whatever comes out of the soil will anyways be a lot better to what I initially bought. So this here is the creme de cassis. And don't forget to label them, because otherwise you're going to have a big surprise. Yeah, they come out really nicely and they look good. One fell off. Might still form another tuber though. So I'm just going to show you. They look completely different. They kind of look like potatoes, to be honest. To me, at least, they do. So this is how the dahlias are looking. What I want to do now, because I'm really losing the daylight now, and it gets really frosty, I can tell you. I'm just going to dig the last 6 ones. Put them all in my wheelbarrow, carry them inside, wash them inside, label them, but I'm just going to show you then on the inside what I'm going to do with them because it's a lot nicer and warmer and I'm so not going to clean them outside. It's a new day and it is a quite cold and grim day. To be honest, it feels exactly how it looks today. But as my grandma always said, there's no such thing as bad weather, there's just bad clothing. So I'm wearing layers and layers, even pulled the sexy long johns out and just had a nice hot cup of tea. So I'm ready to continue with the project from yesterday, which is cleaning the dahlias now. So I managed to dug out all the dahlias and gladioli, put them on the wheelbarrow, and they were all sitting in the garden shed because frost doesn't come in the garden shed that easily. But what I want to do today is just like start cleaning them. And I've already prepared the things that I need to have for today's project. So I've got a bucket with water, I got like a normal kitchen brush, and then I have like a waterproof pencil so that I can write the name on the tuber. So what I have first is I just want to show you how the tubers are looking actually. So this is a creme de cassis and you can tell it developed really well. I planted these brand new this year from one single tuber. So this is the original one that I planted this year, and then all the other tubers that formed all the way around it, they formed within this growing season, which is amazing. And it means if I wanted to next year after storing, I can check them and I could potentially even divide them if I wanted to have more plants. So this is one of the amazing advantages of dahlias actually. You can just plant a single tuber and after one season, if the dahlia loved it in your garden, they'll form multiple tubers, and after storing them over winter, you can divide them next year and have multiple new plants. So this is just amazing to me almost. So what I do is like I prepare my bucket with water, no hot water because you don't want to boil them obviously. These are no potatoes, even though they kind of look close to potatoes, but just nice cold water on a cold day. Smart. So all I do is basically I just get in here now with my brush and just really brush off all the excessive soil there is, to make sure that those are really nice and clean for storing. I mean, if there's still a little bit soil on there, it's not a big problem, but just the majority of it should come off. And the reason why I do it in a bucket is because I don't have too many dahlias. So I don't need to like line them up on the lawn and just swish the water off with a water hose or anything. If you have tons and tons of dahlias, I can understand why you do it, but because I just have like, I don't know, maybe 7 tubers sitting in there now. That is, I think, the easiest way to do it, and also a little more resourceful maybe, of just one bucket of water and that's it. So I'm not like wasting too much water just to clean these dahlias now. So there will be a little bit of soil obviously still in between there, but what I'm going to do now after I've cleaned them, I have some paper towel, kitchen towel out here. So this is all looking nice and good. And I also leave the roots on. I know a lot of people say like strip the roots off, but I kind of leave them on because my parents also done it like this. My grandparents did the same. And also in the past I've done it like that and I've always had good experience with that. So this is what I'll leave them on. Yeah, generally it's quite nice and clean, maybe a little bit here. Isn't that exciting to watch me clean something? Should have maybe picked a smaller tuber to start with. I just want to do a proper thorough job now. I just don't want to do it lukewarm to make it quick. So yeah, they are looking actually quite alright now. So this is how they're looking now. Most of the soil came off. So what I quickly do now is come in with just a little bit of paper towel. And one of those tubers I'm just going to dry off quickly, the rest not really. And then what I do is I have my waterproof marker. You could just use whatever you want basically. This is just what I happen to have, actually one of my illustrating markers. And then I just write the name on the tuber. So this is crème de cassis. So crème de cassis. This is all there is to it. So I remember what it is. I can also label it. If you have like labels, you can always just like do a little paper label with a little twine, just twine it around there. But sometimes I think this is the easiest way of doing it because you just write on it with a marker and then you can always just read it and see it again later on. So these things I'm going to take inside now because since we are expecting more frost nights and I don't normally, if you do it a little earlier in the year, you could just like store them in your garden shed, in your garage, wherever you want, so they just have the opportunity to dry off properly for a couple of days. But I'm just taking them indoors and let them just dry off for 2 days. I'll take them to the guest room though, because I figured if I put them just in the main entrance area on the ground, little Miss Alfie might mistake them for a potato or a snack or anything. And I guarantee she would eat those, 100% sure. I don't think they're poisonous or anything, but I don't want to risk it. So yeah, I'm just going to lay them up in the guest room. Let them dry off for probably 2 days, and then in 2 days I'm going to see her again and talk you through how I store them for winter. And when it comes to the storing, I'm already telling you, you will see 200 billion methods on how to do it. And I also watch a lot of videos about like how to store dahlias and everything, but by the end of the day, I personally think it really has to do a lot with your climate zone, where you are, where you garden. And maybe this is kind of like when you have dahlias and you want to store them, try and find somebody who can advise you how to store them in a climate zone that's close to yours. I am in a zone 7B, but it is quite moist here. There's always a lot of mist and fog and moisture in the air because on one side we have the river, we have so close to the Baltic Sea, and this is why I store them the way and how I store them. But first I'm going to continue with washing all the dirt off from the others and then they go to the inside. It's 2 days later, and as you could see, I washed all of my tubers, put them all into a bucket, and then I stored them inside somewhere dark, nice and warm. And I checked on them this morning and they are perfect. They've dried off completely, as you can see here, so no moisture on them anymore. So now is a good time to store the dahlias. Before you actually really store them, you just want to give them one last inspection to make sure that they are ready for storing. And that means you just come in basically with your hands and touch all of them and see how do they feel. Are they all nice and firm, kind of like a potato should feel? When they feel like a good potato, then you know that they're good. When you sometimes have those potatoes where you feel like, oh, they're almost like squidgy or like a little soft or weird, those are the ones where it's a little iffy if they're good. Just to be sure, then you just come in with your secateurs and remove those tubers from the clump here. You especially want to focus on the center part here because there's always a cluster of multiple smaller tubers, and you really want to have a look. Does anything in here show any sign of mold or rot or anything? And if that is the case, you really need to remove it, because what happens then is that is going to spread over your entire clump here, and then this will be for the trash bin next year when you unpack it. So really give it one last good inspection before you store it. When it comes to the storing, as I said, there's so many different methods on how to do it. I know one method that works really well is you just use a crate, put sand in it, bury your dahlia completely in the sand, also cover it nicely with sand. The sand can be a little damp, not wet or anything, just a tad damp maybe. And then you can store that in your basement, or if you have a heated greenhouse, maybe somewhere in a darker area of your heated greenhouse. Since they'll be covered with sand, that is totally fine. Here we don't have a basement and we don't have a heated greenhouse. We don't have any greenhouse at all. So that method unfortunately doesn't work at all. So I do a different method that I remember my parents did in the past, and that works really well. What I need to do though is find a cool room of the house, and here this is a storage room, because there is a room where we don't have heating and it only gets like the excessive heat from the walls basically surrounding it. So that makes it a good room, and I stored dahlias there in the past, so this is why I know it works fairly well there. So when you store dahlias, don't put them somewhere warm, because this is really what they do not like when you overwinter them. I use the method that my parents did in the past, which is wrapping your dahlias in paper. So you could just use old newspaper or whatever you have. We have this kind of paper, which is almost like a newspaper texture. And all I do is I'll take the tuber, wrap it in the paper, just completely in there, just like that, and then it goes into a nice box. And I use the kind of a sturdy box, because you don't want that it kind of like starts, I don't know, to be lumpy or like wet or damp or anything at one point. So this is the one that I used in the past when I was storing my dahlias. And you might question, like, storing dahlias in the past, what happened to those? I kind of had a while where I was not growing dahlias, I think for 2 or 3 years. And what happened is, I think one winter came and somebody was too lazy to dig out all the dahlias. Well, I think it was just 3 or 4 of them even then, back then. So yeah, I thought like maybe I can just keep them in ground, because who knows, maybe it works, but clearly that doesn't work here, so they just never came back. They definitely, even zone 7B, you need to lift your dahlias, and unless you really give them like a perfect sheltered, heated location and mulch them to death probably, but it was not working well here. So yeah, this is what I do. Storing them like this, what happens is they will look a little shrivelly after a while. And you'll figure, because when you store your dahlias, every now and then during the winter month, you should go in there and inspect them. Just take them all out, unwrap them, and see how they are looking. Because still, they can mold or something could just happen in here. So you just want to be on the safe side. When you put them in sand, and the sand will be damp, the dahlia tubers will stay quite nice and firm. Those won't. These here will really kind of like dry off over the winter a little bit and look a little shrivelly, literally. But before I plant them next year, what I do is I always put them in a bucket full of water and let them sit there for a good 5-6 hours so they can soak up all that moisture, and only then I'll plant them, and that works extremely well. So this is a method that I can really recommend of doing. If you don't have like a greenhouse, a basement, you don't have the opportunity to put them into crates or anything. Depending on your climate zone, really do your research. What is the best method on storing dahlias? If you are in a zone like 6 or 7, those are the areas that I know to garden at, this is a method that works fairly well. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to wrap up all my dahlias and the gladiola as well, and they all go in here, and then I put them into the storage room and say good night, have a nice dormancy. That was it for today's video. All the dahlias and gladioli are wrapped in the paper in a box, and I put them in the storage room. So I said goodnight to them, and I hope that they overwinter well in there. And it's one of those moments where you just know, like, next spring comes, you're excited to get in there and start potting them up into fresh garden soil. And it's almost like when I was just planting my tulips. You plant tubers, you plant bulbs or something, and it doesn't feel like a very exciting process because you just bung a hole, put it in there, and you don't see anything. But your mind automatically goes back to those days when those plants were out there in the borders and they were looking so nice and beautiful. So this is what I love doing, stuff like this actually. And maybe if you're not growing any dahlias, I could encourage you on trying it for yourself, because you could tell if you just grow a couple of dahlias, such as I did, it was really not a lot of work and effort involved in it. It went fairly well. If the weather would have been nicer, everything would have probably gone a little quicker on top of it. But I mean, time wasn't really pressuring or anything, so I don't care that it took a little longer now. And I can tell you next year I'm going to amp up my game a little bit on dahlias, because there are a couple of new varieties where I had an eye on and I was really excited about them. So let's see what I'm going to come up with next year. Up until then, I would really love to welcome you in one of my future videos. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye.